They didn't take any of us into custody. They never handcuffed any of us. When John and him came walking up, John was actually behind the agent that had the firearm. There was no custody as far as handcuffs.
When was he arrested?
He was arrested 2 days after I was, in October.
Okay, so y'all were in detention, but...
Oh, absolutely.
But it was not necessarily custodial detention.
No, it was a custodial arrest. They testified in court last week that my lawyer asked the BP agent, he said, the BP agent stated that we were not being arrested. We were only being temporarily held to try to determine what happened. And my lawyer asked him point blank, if Mr. Massey, who was not a witness, who was not at the scene, who knew nothing about what happened, would have tried to leave, what would have happened? And the Border Patrol agent stated very clearly on the record, on the witness stand, that I would have been placed in handcuffs and placed in a Border Patrol vehicle. So by definition, we were all under a custodial arrest. We were just not under restraint.
Now, Forster is charged with the same offense as you?
Yes.
And he has a similar criminal background, and that is of burglary.
Yes, but the main difference between Forster, and I didn't know this at the time, Forster has a recent conviction, as recent as 2009. At the time, I was not aware of that. I was told that the last time he had been in trouble was 2001, and he had a 2-year sentence, which would have made 2003, which then 5 years past that would have been 2008, which made him eligible to have a firearm by Texas law.
But not according to federal law.
Well, federal law, the federal government does not have authority to regulate firearms. Their powers are only granted in the Constitution, and the Constitution is very clear. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed, and one of the enumerated rights or duties of the government is to regulate commerce. And so that's how the federal government tries to insert their will and authority over regular American people, is through the Commerce Clause, which, if you read the law, it has to do with commerce. It's a commerce law. I was never engaged in commerce. I never was engaged in interstate or foreign commerce, or even intrastate commerce.
Well, the only thing that has any impact on interstate commerce is that the 2 weapons involved came from another nation or came from another state. And so it occurs to me that you're in a position by not pleading guilty and going to a jury trial, you could very well make a law and do something as a defendant who becomes an appellant in a federal court of law that would enter a new case law on the books, which would change things.
Well, there's been a case, a guy in Pennsylvania just recently sued and won the Department of Justice in Pennsylvania. I've got the case site, I can give it to you, where he was similarly convicted like myself a long time ago. And according to federal law, the way they try to portray the law is that he would have been barred from having a firearm. So he sued the Department of Justice and won in a federal district court. And what the court held was that as long as somebody's convicted, the federal recidivism rate, according to the feds, is 75% of offenders reoffend within 3 years. And as long as you were not involved in a criminal activity, a gang, or anything like that, that there is no reason why a private citizen not conducting or engaged in crime should not have the right to be armed and to have a firearm. This has already gone through.
As state law goes, you were legal because you were on private property. You were there as a friend, invited by a friend, and your purpose was to cause people who were doing illegal things to want to go do them somewhere else.
We were there as a deterrent, and by state law, as testified in federal court in front of the Honorable Judge Hannon, the deputy sheriff testified to the judge that by state law that I was more than legal to be in possession of a firearm, that I had far exceeded the legal requirement by state law that was necessary to have a firearm, and that's why I was not arrested by the sheriff that day.